Many thanks indeed. And I'm just looking at this copy of The Economist. I just whipped up there. This was a May issue. The coming food catastrophe. This is looming. And if you look keenly also on this graphics, what can you see? This is meant to be, you can see scars there. And right now we're suffering from, on the wheat. This is just a bellwether, and according to The Economist, this is what the world is experiencing right now with the global warming. The question that will come also to Billow Kerrow is the Gulana Kulalu will have solved this issue right now. We wouldn't be talking about maize flour and cost of maize flour right now if government had their ducks in a row as far as maize flour is concerned with that particular project that was fraught with so much, controversy, and corruption, and even the Israeli government, they're on record saying we've never failed as far as projects are concerned in the world, save in Kenya. Nothing really works at the end of the day, and of course they bolted. And even when we had the previous Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, coming to the country, he visited everywhere, save for Galana Kulalu. And we wonder why. This was a project of Israeli. He should have been the first person to come and see how is it really faring. I just want you to comment on that, because we shouldn't be talking about this. This is a pure dysfunction of the government, and they're the people who are failing Kenyans at the end of the day.
Yes, Divala, I don't think there's anyone else who fails Kenyans other than government, isn't it? Obviously, it's the government. But look at it from a larger picture. When this administration came in 10 years ago, food security was the main thing that they promised they will handle. And for the last 10 years, on average, the Ministry of Agriculture has received allocations far in excess of 50 billion. You're talking of over 500 billion shillings, given to this ministry in 10 years. We have an economy, a government that has an expenditure annually in excess of $30 billion. And you cannot get things right, not just on food, maize. I mean, it's literally across the board in all the areas of food, water, and I mean in many areas. So I think the challenge we've mentioned earlier, the government, it's dysfunctional in terms of in managing. They can't, and we've been doing the same thing, and we expect different results for the last 10 years with regards to this issue of food security and maize in particular. So Galana is the same thing. There's no difference. I mean, you could talk of another project in terms of, you remember Turkana, they talked of, we were going to put at the beginning of 2013, they talked of putting 1 million, 2 million acres, in Turkana and irrigation and food. But nothing comes out of this planning by the government. And I think, frankly, we are in a situation where the challenge we have is a government that says they have to do all the thinking for the people of Kenya. And that does not want to consult. That does not want to, that has no inclusive policies. And so you have, the CS knows everything. The peers knows everything. No one else knows in this country about how to run things. So we don't go anywhere. And so they promised 10 years ago that the price of fertilizer is going to be 1/3 of what it is. The cost of freight is going to be reduced from 130 to 30,000. Everything is a pledge. Today we are going through the same. We are going for an election. You're already being told who's going to be there when elections are over. You don't expect miracles to happen, because the same people who are running are going to run this government again. So it's an unfortunate situation we are in. And I think for me the issue is the government must really learn to listen to the people. The government must get used to involving other sectors of the economy in their planning, and it's not so that you don't just wake up and say, this is my legacy, I want to do XYZ, and you do it and nothing comes out of it, and Kenyans are back to where they were. So I think that is, we need to change the way we are doing things. And unfortunately, each of us, I think, who are in this position where we are, need to tell the leaders that it's time this country's leaders learn to listen to people and really try and get things done. Because maize, if you just sit with the millers and the major producers of maize and discuss with them on how to enhance production in this country of maize, you will find solutions. But nobody wants to get into that. Government will wait. by being given advance warning. And let me tell you, in this country, we have very critical institutions, UNEP and ICRAF and many other environment-related institutions, and they have warned, and this I am a party to it, more than 7-8 years ago, that East Africa is going to face serious challenges in terms of food security because of the weather patterns. And they give you information 2 or 3 years in advance that you can use as government to plan. And regrettably, is not being used. And even where we spend our money, by the way, it's not about the food security. We give money to coffee, we give money to tea. We're talking of avocados and all those. Those are the places where you invest money. How much money is invested in Kwale to enhance production of maize? How much are you putting in those areas around Narok? Look at the numbers every year. It's so because we are elitist, even in terms of resource allocation, in terms of our priorities, they are misplaced. And so then, at the end of the day, you cannot just wake up and tell Kenyans, can you change your diet? Go from maize and go into this. It's not something that, can just, you can't just tell them to do that. I think the important thing is, for me, the fundamental thing is the government needs to listen to people. The government needs to involve really stakeholders in their planning. And the government needs to focus really beyond, annual budgets to medium term, long term, to try and address some of the challenges that we face, in particular in food security, which has been their number one agenda, and even now it's still the number one agenda in their big four the last couple of years, but still it has remained elusive.
Right. I can see Professor Gituro Wanena is turning at the list to say something. Yeah,
I wanted to ask, get experience from Bill, that he was in the parliament, and in the constitution is very clear that you cannot subdivide the land to a certain level. Why it has taken, I don't know how many, 3 of them to pass that law? Because very clear, you cannot subdivide your land to a certain level. I think it's 5 acres or so. Why has Parliament not done it? And it's there in the Constitution.
Why has Parliament not done in what? In terms of the legislation in the Constitution?
There are certain areas in this country where you even get an eighth of an acre or half. The Constitution is very clear. The lowest level you can go is some of subdivision of that piece of land, even for commercial. Why has Parliament not passed this law? His experience, he was there.
But if it's in the Constitution, why do we need to pass the law?
You have to
maybe I don't follow.
You have to unpack the Constitution is not the law. You have to unpack the Constitution and make it operational.
It's actually more of operationalization,
yes,
than creating new laws.
But that has got nothing to do with Parliament.
But let me
it is them. Actually, look at Section 8.
Okay, let me just. Okay, I'm not the parliamentarian. Maybe Billow will be in a better place to answer that. Billow.
Well, I think that the issue is that clause, of course, the Constitution, also talks about idle land, and so the issue is, when the principle has been captured in the Constitution, where Parliament needs to enact relevant legislation to give effect to some of those provisions in the Constitution. But let me tell you, the issues of land are so delicate that because of political expediency and many other factors, it's not been possible, I think, for the government to produce a legislation in restricting, for example, giving effect to those issues of idle land and of subdivision of land and so forth. So I think that has been the challenge. Maybe even as a private member, one would be able to bring legislation, but again, I think the issue of land, many people would, from a political aspect of it, is a bit tricky, and nobody wants to go to that area. But it has worked in many countries. You go to Rwanda, I mean, you can't subdivide land into quarter acres, and you put everything. This is, the child is born, you again have to subdivide. I think it's important. I agree that is a critical, and particularly in the food basket areas, we need to preserve land, and the areas that have been mentioned, like in Western and in Rift Valley parts of the country where they are critical, it's important. But I don't think it's been possible to pass that legislation because of, it's a hot potato and nobody wants to perhaps get into it.